We're going to get the call started and then, with some questions, get things rolling. But then, of course, we're going to open it up to everybody to bring in your questions or your responses. But I first want to introduce Dr. Eileen Borris. There she is. Yes. So there's much to say about Dr. Eileen Borris, and I hope you had a chance to look at her website or newsletter if you have her book. A lot to say about her education, her work, her experiences. They're very extensive. So briefly, to say she's a clinical and political psychologist and has worked in many areas of conflict around the world, such as in India, Africa, the Middle East, doing various programs, trainings that have involved forgiveness and reconciliation processes within the context of conflict resolution. She was invited to create and instruct peace-building programs in more than 15 of the most unstable and war-torn countries. Just like, okay, wow. We look forward to hearing about that. She's been developing programs with forgiveness and political forgiveness since 1995. And Eileen has spoken at the United Nations General Assembly in New York as a keynote speaker several times about forgiveness in different contexts. She's published 2 highly acclaimed books. This is one of them. And that has a foreword by the Dalai Lama, which is amazing. And she's currently writing a book on political forgiveness called Healing Hate in America, The Power of Political Forgiveness. She also has a newsletter. We'll speak about that later, that comes out monthly on political forgiveness. And I want to say that Eileen has been with us in the last calls we've had in the Resilient Life work on forgiveness. And it's just been wonderful having you there, Eileen. She brings her presence. She always sends us very loving feedback and her gratitude for the work. So we're very thrilled to welcome Dr. Eileen Borris today and have a conversation about forgiveness and political forgiveness specifically. And I'm going to take this opportunity now. And before I do that, actually, I want to ask you, Eileen, if you want to say anything more about yourself or your background.
You're just so beautiful in the way you've introduced me. So I thank you. And the one thing I do want to say is that I just feel so honored and humbled to be invited to speak to this wonderful group. As you mentioned, I've had the opportunity to sit in on the classes, and I leave those classes filled with joy in my heart with what all of you are doing, because we need this work so much, and to see so many people so interested in it, and then to be invited to be part of this, in a sense, it's just very touching to me. So I just want to thank you right off.
Thank you. Thank you. You see, thank you very much, Eileen. So I am going to use this opportunity now, and I know Mary's not expecting this, but I feel it's the right thing to do, just to say I feel very grateful that Mary Noble's here with us as well in this conversation. She is the CEO of Feminenza, and Mary is the one who really pioneered the forgiveness work into the world, which I know many of us are grateful for. And she's done a lot around the world, uplifted many human lives and communities. So thank you, Mary, as well, for your work.
Thank you, Eileen.
I'm always forever grateful, I think. She uplifted my life as well. And from the moment I met the work on forgiveness and Feminenza, that was it. I was moved, touched, hooked. So I'm going to start with, I actually have my cat here who's insisting to be fed. So in a moment, I may have to go away and do that, because you know how they are. We're not supposed to multitask, but she is a priority. So I want to start with, Eileen, if you can just speak to us a bit about what is political forgiveness and why is this work so important for you now?
Okay. Political forgiveness is a process, an interactive process, which applies the principles of forgiveness to the political arena. And so what that means, it takes a look at what what is forgiveness, and helping people really learn and understand what that is and what are the principles, of forgiveness. And this becomes part of a training program. And so it's part of an individual healing. It's part of restoring communal relationships and developing a just order. So you're working on the individual, the societal, and the national level. And so that's basically what political forgiveness is, applying these principles of forgiveness to the political arena.
Right. I mean, I have to say, I'm very impressed that you're writing this book now called Healing Hate in America and the Power of Political Forgiveness. And it does look to me like a formidable task, not easy at all. So how do you even begin to bridge? Like if you were going to go into that arena, and you have been in other arenas throughout the world, how do you even begin to bridge, those differences, and especially in places where, the politics are very polarized, there's a lot of toxicity, a lot of mistrust, kind of no respect. How do you actually bring that forgiveness into that political arena? I know that's a big question and kind of broad, but
You certainly know how to ask them, don't you, Eileen? It's a great question, and it's very relevant and appropriate, because for those who are not living in the US, you probably do know how polarized this country has become. And you see polarization all around the world. So the way I look at it is that even though there's vast polarization, there are also people who are saying, I don't want this anymore.
mm-hmm.
And I think, just like with other mechanisms in the international conflict resolution world, in negotiation, we call it ripeness, mediation, we call it ripeness. There comes a time when people, I believe, have suffered so much that they finally say, we got to stop this. This is not working.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think it's really important to find those people. And they're really not so hard to find, because they're different organizations. Like we have Braver Angels, for one thing, and you've all met Joy. She's one of the coordinators in Arizona. This is a group where people from the Democratic and the Republican Party get together. We're called Reds and Blues, to have dialogue. So you begin, and all of you do that beautifully, I'm sure, with the way you tap into non-governmental organizations, NGOs, charities, things of that nature. There are people out there. And sometimes what you have to do is work with people separately. And I feel really strongly that that is one way to begin to build a platform. For me, what this work is about is building a culture of political forgiveness.
Mm-hmm.
And start where you can.
Mm-hmm.
And if that means you work with a certain group and you give them the skills of forgiveness, and you give them the skills to be able to go back into their communities, to really listen to one another, and really learn how to help people be heard and seen and valued. And this is all part of the political forgiveness training program that I have, of first part of giving forgiveness skills. And I don't even start talking about it as though it's forgiveness. I'll say, this is a culture now in the United States, for sure, culture of grievances, a culture of holding on to petty angers. So what I want to teach all of you is to how to let go of those grievances, those petty angers in your life, and then how to apply it to the people you know in your communities and your organizations. And so I really work with, okay, what are grievances? How do they develop? These are some of the basic principles of forgiveness, but I haven't used the word forgiveness yet. Mm-hmm. But in all your training, you know that we have to learn, as part of the forgiveness work, is to not to take things so personally, that what's going on in our lives are going on in a lot of other people's lives. Mm-hmm. And I really begin to speak to that. And then how to let go of those grievances, and how to start taking responsibility for your own emotional reactions. This all probably sounds very familiar to everybody in those that are really working on learning how to forgive. Recognizing your, what I call your unenforceable rules, your expectations, and to recognize that expectations are not facts. Unenforceable rules are not facts, and helping people see that. So people go through this learning of letting go of grievances and petty angers and how to change the channel. And then I'll say, what you have just learned is a basic process of learning how to forgive.
Mm-hmm.
And so now at this point, now people are understanding we're not talking about a spiritual kind of thing or a judgmental kind of thing. We're talking about something very practical that has sound psychological principles behind it and that anybody can do it.
Mm-hmm.
And then from there, go into training about how do we listen to one another and why that's so important.
Mm-hmm.
And the importance of when you're listening, you're giving people respect. And that in our society, where's the civility? Now we're bringing back civility.
Mm-hmm.
And then as they learn the skills, we begin to apply it to learning about people's deep stories. Now that we're all together, now this is when even if you're in what you think are a homogenized group, everybody has still their different beliefs. And so I want people to learn, how do we learn about one another? Tell me your story. Tell me where you grew up. Tell me how your beliefs formed. Tell me what influenced you. Because when we begin to understand one another, we can't fight with one another.
Mm-hmm.
That's how you begin to build the bridges.
Yes.
So now people are beginning to learn that. And then I begin to explain the role of empathy, especially in community.
Mm-hmm.
And that what we all need to do, every single one of us, is how do we scale the empathy wall? We've all got to be honest. If I was here with somebody who represented the conservative right, probably
Mm-hmm.
some gut things will come up about them.
Mm-hmm.
And I have to take a look at that and own it, that that's my stuff.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And in owning that, I can hear you and begin to bond with you. It's not about you, it's about me. So in order to really do this work in political forgiveness, those that really get involved, the inner work is imperative.
Mm-hmm.
Some people can do it on their own. Some people might want to participate in training programs. So that work has to be done, because when you want to work in communities, and all of you know this as well, we've got to have a certain mindset to do it. And that what we're really trying to do in terms of building a cultural political forgiveness is to change people's mindsets from being in their narrow little bubble to be able to expand their minds and to let go of their judgments, to really begin to hear one another and know that there's really, in many cases, no right or wrong. It is what it is.
Yeah.
And then as a
Yes.
community level, we kind of get together and talk about, have a dialogue on what I call the logics of truth. And the Columbia Truth and Reconciliation Commission there, the title I never can remember, they are actually using these questions of the logics of truth to help bring people back together.
Mm-hmm.
And there again, it's about, why do we hold the beliefs that we do? What are some of the obstacles that we're putting up as a result of holding on so tightly to our beliefs? How can we really begin to incorporate what we've heard with other people in a healing capacity? And how can we take all of this now and choose healing mechanisms for our communities?
So can I ask you, Eileen, if you can tell us a story that reflects some of that work that you've done on political forgiveness, where you worked through some things with people or individuals or however you did that and how it worked for them, or I'm sure you have a lot of stories, but one that really, stands out that was successful. And if you also want to tell the one that didn't work, because I was wondering about, you talk at some point, I think I saw it on a YouTube or somewhere about how, people need to be committed to the work. And if they're not committed, it can't work. So I thought, what do you do if you meet with people and they're not committed? They don't want to forgive. They don't want to change their grievances. They don't, they want justice and they want revenge. They don't want to change. So how do you handle that if they don't want to commit? But also, so if you have a story that reflects that and one also where it was successful, that would be great.
Uh,
And I'm gonna move. I have to feed my cat. She's literally eating my arm, but I'm with you.
oh, okay.
I'm home alone.
Um, to answer your first question, I always go back to thinking about some of the work I did in Nigeria, actually.
Mm-hmm.
And in Nigeria, I was working with Christian organization and a Muslim organization. And I won't go into the conflict, but I will share with you what happened with the work. And I started working with the Muslim group, and they knew that I was going to be working with the Christian group. And of course, right off, they said, we are not the problem, it's the other group. And I get that a lot. We are not the problem, it's the other group. We don't need to do this, it's the other group. And I will say, that's great. That's great. So we're going to have an easy time here. And I'm just going to review with you some things. And we get into the work. And these trainings are usually 5 days. And so what usually happens is about the third day, they begin to really recognize, yeah, we do this, we do that, yeah. And they begin to own what they do. And by the end of the training, they have developed a different mindset. So I don't argue with people who say, we need to hold on to this, we need to hold on to that. And you've heard me say before on another call, I even have, when I'm working with individuals and other people, I'll say, well, tell me your revenge story. What does that look like? And let people really get into it and just add, I do this and I do that and yada yada. Let them just have a great time with it. And then at the end, I'll say to them, now tell me, if you acted out that revenge story, would it get you what you really want? And of course they say no.
Yes, and that I'm going to say, because it was very beneficial for me. I asked you that to do with young people.
Right.
What do you say to young people who are bent on revenge? And you said exactly that. I asked them how they're getting on with it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And, and then we talk about the mourning and the grieving, which is part of it. That one of the reasons they're so angry is because of what they lost. Let's talk about that. Let's talk about, what's underneath the anger, which is usually loss and grief and sometimes fear. And you begin to work through these emotions. This is all part of the forgiveness process. You've got to go there to be able to get to the other side. And so I have them talk about that and the sadness and the grieving and whatever needs to come up. That's all part of it. And people begin to bond. And, I might even say, just for you to keep in the back of your minds, probably the other group feels very much the same as you. That, and to kind of foreshadow that there's bonding here, that this is part of the human experience.
Yes.
And, I know I've mentioned this to you in another call. They get through the program and now they're really excited that the Christian group is going to be going through it the next week. And in this particular group, I just really have to laugh because we start with a Christian the first day. No, it's not as if they didn't do X, Y, and Z and on and on. Okay, well let's go into this, and let me just go through some basic things because I know you all know it, which they don't. And that we start the same process. And about midway through, it's when, that's when the hard place comes. And that's when people actually even want to walk. We don't need this. This kind of comes back to what you were asking, Eileen. We don't need this. We don't want this. Not for us. And I'll say to them, stick to the hard places, because that's where the transformation happens. Just stick with it. Just stick with it. And of course, at the hardest moment, all of a sudden, the Muslim group breaks in. And everyone's like kind of looking at, what are you guys doing here? And they said, we're just so excited for you. We just want you to know we've gone through this. We know where you are today, and we're looking forward to partying with you on Friday.
Wow. Oh, nice. Oh, that's fantastic.
It was really, really great. And of course, that's what happened. And when they all got together, they made a pact. And I said, you're going to be tested. When you're dealing with these kinds of conflicts, there are spoilers out there who don't want to see peace happen. And I've warned them, and I said, as soon as I get on the plane, something's going to happen. You guys have got to make a pact. And what they did is they created an organization, and like an umbrella organization where they all work together. And sure enough, get on the plane, and there was a spoiler attack. But this is the work, and it has to keep going. And what I feel really strongly about, and I'm kind of thinking out loud with you, Eileen, with Mary, and your group, is that maybe one day we can really start getting a network of all the people that are on this call who want to be part of a network, and all the people that have been involved in your trainings, to get some kind of network. And Penny, I can't see you, but I know you're there. I think I'm probably giving you more work. Because if we could get a network of that, so people in Australia, I know we got somebody from Australia, has a situation that comes up, they can speak to, we've got the Netherlands contingent here. Have you ever dealt with this issue? Can you help us with this? And, Mary gets a call, or I get a call. So we're all in it together. And it could be one just huge listserv that everybody can jump on and share about the work that they're doing, and what challenges they might be facing, or what help they might need, or an inspirational story to keep us going. Because what I envision, and it's going to take all of us, our lights in every country, all over the world. And I think that would be fantastic.
Yes,
so we can really build a culture of political forgiveness, or forgiveness, all around the globe. So this becomes everybody's default instead of violence and all of that.
Right. Actually, I love that idea, Eileen, with people they can call, because it's one thing to do a training and do the work, but then to keep it sustainable and keep it going and keep that commitment.
That's
and
right.
If there were people that, if there were many people that they could call or arrange a call,
or even
be stuck, or they've gone off, or they can't hold it, or
even a major listserv of everybody, and somebody says, gee, I ran into this problem. Has anybody else had to deal with this? And, that kind of thing.
Right.
Or I'm really down today because it just seems like everybody's fighting, or whatever.
Yeah.
And somebody hops on and says, now remember this.
Wonderful. Like a mentor, kind of,
It's all of us.
Yes.
All of us there together as a network.
Yes.
Helping each other and being there for another and reminding each other.
Yes.
I mean, I have to say, Eileen, when Mary first told me about you, and she said, you're from New York. Well, for those of you on the call that don't know it, Eileen and I are both. We have New York connections right next door to one another, but I'm now in Arizona. But just to know you were there and the work you were doing, it was like, oh, that's nice. I'm not alone.
Right. Yes. You're not.
So if I could pop in here, thank you very much, Eileen, for that example from Nigeria. And I know it was one of the things that I've come across working around the world is how we are all programmed from our society to somehow think that we're just a little bit better than those people over there, that country over there, And when I was growing up, in England, it was the Irish. We had, you'd hear these Irish jokes all over the place. Now, I appreciate Eileen's, partly Irish, and I've known have some incredibly good Irish friends. But I remember there was that sort of background thing of, oh, the Irish are a bit thick or they're a bit stupid. And you go, but that actually doesn't match with the incredible Irish people that I know and that I've met and all of that. But you have to kind of go in there and dismantle. And then I discovered it was right across the world. If you're in Vietnam, it's like, oh, well, the people who live across the border in Cambodia, they have a both name for them, or the ones who live here, they have a name for those over there. And it's like right across the planet. And I just think, okay, whatever it is, that urge to kind of go, we are the better ones and you guys are, somehow we've got to learn to get past that. Because if this idea of our common humanity, is to become a real thing. I mean, I came across this in Kenya, and I know I've got Agnes and Mary here who are today on the call, who are two of the wonderful ladies that we worked with for many years. And I met this when Agnes invited me to work with 25 chiefs and members of peace committees and elders in a part of Kenya, because we were worried about the forthcoming elections and what might happen. And they were from various different tribal backgrounds. So one of the first conversations we had was, so, okay, you're a Kikuyu. What in the back of your mind do you actually think about the Kalenjin? Or you're a Kalenjin. Do you kind of, when you're just joking with your friends, go, oh, well, that's a Kikuyu, of course they're a thief. Or, oh, well, they're a Kalenjin, of course they're just a bit stupid, or, and so on and so on. And all of these sort of really, nicely dressed, elegant sort of gentlemen cracked up and admitted and confessed that it was so automatic that nobody even realized they were doing it. And yet this is what was being passed on to the youth. And then they were wondering, why is it that the youth keep falling into this constant us and them tribal thing? My God, we're just perpetuating without even realizing we're doing it. It's just in our everyday speech, in our examples, in our language. So I have a real thing about, Irish jokes or whatever they are. I go, no, I'm sorry. Okay, there is a place for humor. I mean, the English love joking about the French, but, the French are amazing. So and so it goes on, and those are sort of mild examples, but those examples can then become very deadly. Because that dehumanizing process that we saw, for example, in Rwanda, also, in Kenya, where you start to literally say they're less human than us, that's when it becomes profoundly dangerous. So I wonder if that's something that you've, encountered, Eileen, also.
Very much so. A lot of what you're talking about is also what we call ethnocentrism.
Right.
That we all see things through our own eyes, thinking that that's the worldview of everybody else. And, when I teach cross-cultural communication, I kind of jokingly say, but I kind of in my heart wish that all Americans could spend a month in a different country. And I'm not talking Western Europe.
Yeah.
I'm talking Africa, Asia, poorer countries, and live not in the Hilton, but with a family, and see what they go through day after day to begin to shift the way we think. And earlier, I talked about in terms of the political forgiveness training, part of it is to help us change our mindsets. And those mindsets are to be able to, as I mentioned earlier, bring down that empathy wall. Mm. And, like what you were just mentioning, how people joked about the Irish. Well, you got to bring down that wall so you can begin to empathize. And that's some of the power in the political forgiveness work and in the forgiveness work. It's learning how to walk in somebody else's shoes. It's learning how to understand the psychological landscape where somebody else has come from. May it be another country, may it be coming from an abusive family that began to abuse someone else, and you're not, condoning it. You're understanding it. And your actions might even be the exact same in how you choose to deal with it. But your mindset is different, and that subtlety comes through. So instead of saying this person's got to go to jail, we're going to throw away the keys or rotten, whatever, you say, okay, this person has committed a crime. They need to be held accountable. And on society, that means you're going to have to be in jail, but we need to help rehabilitate you.
Right, right.
Yeah.
Wow, great. Great. So, Mary, if you have something else, or we do have a couple of people that are,
I think let's go ahead and open it up to.
okay, wonderful.
I'm assuming everybody here has gone through some of your classes.
Mm-hmm.
So they understand what forgiveness is. And forgiveness is really about your own inner healing. It's not about an outward action towards someone else. It's about your own healing. It's about you letting go your own emotional burdens. It's empowering yourself and helping you learn how to take responsibility for your own stuff. So now you can make different choices. It's about, learning how to work more appropriately with your feelings. And what it's not condoning unkindness. It's not forgetting what happened. It's not letting someone off the hook. It's not excusing people for poor behavior. And I think this is really important for people to really understand. And I know that your group probably knows all of this, but as we work with others, this is really an important thing to remind people of what forgiveness is and what it's not.
Yes, I think so too. And by the way, I think no matter how long you've worked with forgiveness, it's always helpful to hear certain things again, because it takes time and it comes again, and you meet obstacles and you have to work it again. So thank you for that, what you said about what it is and what it isn't. And feel free to bring some of that in later, because that was a lot. What you just said, there's a lot in there, I think. I think you can feel free to highlight some of those things. And if it's okay, yes, go ahead.
And I'm glad you said it. All of this work takes time.
It does.
I started studying and working with forgiveness in 1985. I'm almost embarrassed to tell you how long it's been. And to this day, I keep going over things, and that's no joke.
Yeah,
because
I know.
really, forgiveness is antithetical to what our ego wants us to think, believe, and behave.
Yes, yes.
Antithetical to it. And so what our ego wants to do and has us doing, and I got as big an ego as everybody else. Forgiveness is trying to undo that.
Yes.
And so, and when I give even classes, I'll say, I'm going to try to teach some things and share some concepts, and you're all going to get excited about it, and you're going to walk out to your car, and then you're going to say, what did she say? I don't mind repeating it over and over. I read this stuff almost daily. And I was even thinking about some of the things for today. I was looking over yesterday and I'm saying, why don't I get this? This is so important.
Yes, it is. It is.
But I look at it as a meditation, this work in forgiveness. When you sit and meditate, you're focusing on one thing, like you're breathing, your eyes are closed, and you say, okay, I'm going to just focus on my breathing. And if any thoughts come in, I'll just label what they are and let them go. But I'm going to just keep quiet. A thought comes in a nanosecond.
Yes.
It is again.
Yes.
It's
absolutely.
I
just did that the other day. A friend insulted me, and then I'm like, okay, as I often do. Have I ever done that to anyone? Yes, of course I have. But then I still had to work through some things because it bothered me, and I was in there wrangling around. Anyway, but yes, it became like a meditation and where I wanted to go with it. But I do want to open this because we have some people chomping at the bit here. So I know that Connie, if you want to come, if you can bring Connie to the screen.
Hi, Eileen. As what you were just saying, how does humility play a part? And is there anything that can be taught? Like in Japan, they're always bowing to each other. And because it's kind of like it's hard to be humble, right? And we have to have a little bit of humility too. So I'd love to hear your thoughts on that.
Well, good morning, Connie. For those of you that don't know, Connie's a dear friend of mine, and I'm so glad she's on the call. I think forgiveness, when you practice it, teaches about humility. So when you are able to say, okay, I'm really angry at so and so, and then I say to myself, what am I accusing them of? Because in a sense, that's what I'm secretly accusing myself of. And I recognize that if I were placed in the same situation as they were, whatever that situation is, I probably wouldn't act much differently. Even if I were like a Hutu during the Rwanda genocide, we'd like to think, oh, we would never do these things. But if I were like a Hutu and lived their experience of being oppressed and all the kinds of stuff that they were feeling, I would not probably act a whole lot differently, especially if I'm also told kill or be killed. That's how you grow in humility. And then you begin to appreciate the struggles somebody else has gone through. And you thank God you're not going through them. So forgiveness really does help when you go into the deeper layers of it, of humility. Because the bottom line, we're in this together. We're more alike than different. And if we were put in the same kinds of circumstances as somebody else who may have done a rotten thing, you really do grow in humility. I hope that answers your question, because I know if it didn't, you'll be after me.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, what I'm hearing you say is kind of like just like me. Because I really tried to do this, just like me, XYZ. So I like the question, what am I accusing them of? Thank you.
Because that's what I'm secretly accusing myself of. And what I say to people is, there are things that are going to happen in our lives that are going to make us angry. It would make anyone angry. And anger is appropriate. It's when you cannot let it go in an appropriate amount of time. So if something happened to you today and you tell your friends about it, yada, yada, tomorrow's a new day and you kind of forget about it, that's appropriate anger. But if you hold on to it and it becomes more and more intense inside of you, and that's when you begin to start thinking out revenge and all of that, you have to step back and say, what am I accusing that person of? Because that's what I'm secretly accusing myself of. Obviously, the form's going to be different. The content will be different, because our egos are slippery snakes. But when we are willing to take a look at it, anger is usually telling us that something outside of us needs to change, like you got to get out of Dodge, or something inside of us needs to change. And a lot of times it's more about what's inside of us that needs to change. And that's the message of anger. And when we learn how to work with it, that's part of the healing process which forgiveness can bring.
Wonderful.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Connie. So there's somebody named Florida who's got a question.
Thank you. Sorry for the sound since I'm on a local bus. Anyways, I just wrote, that's why the reason why I wrote it. Yes, I'm so sorry for this inconvenience since I'm outside for the moment. I'm on a bus. But I really wanted to attend this meeting, and thank you for organizing it for us. And thank you for Eileen for saving this time for us as well. And I just wanted to add something, since how soon is it to start talking about forgiveness amongst people who have gone horrendous experiences? Like, for example, I work at KRCT, and we work with survivors of sexual violence. And you can see that with the treatment, with their rehabilitation process, it comes along also the forgiveness. But do they go both in hand, or is there an optimal timing where to start and when to start talking about forgiveness as well?
Okay, Flora, what country are you in?
Kosovo.
Oh, okay. One of
Since
the
I'm sorry to interrupt, since the war has ended 25 years ago. So to me, to my perspective, it's been enough time and we need to start talking about it, but how soon it will be or uh, appropriate to talk about this with survivor of sexual violence or people who have still missing family members in their houses. So is there an optimal timing to do so? Or
I think for everybody, it's very different. There's just no one size fits all. One of the interesting things to know, though, is that you're talking also about how do we heal trauma? I mean, people have gone through horrific trauma. So the first thing in healing trauma is breaking the silence, telling the story. And in forgiveness work, one of the first things to do is tell the story, and tell the story in a safe place. Tell the story with a trusted other. It's getting out those emotions. It's getting out those feelings. It's getting out the pain, the anger, all of this. And that takes time. So that first step in healing trauma is actually the first step along the continuum of forgiveness. And that's why a lot of times I don't even use the word forgiveness until we're well into a healing, where people all of a sudden realize, oh my God, I've worked through my anger. I've done this, I've done that. And they recognize that, oh my goodness, I've done some healing. And what I'm learning is if I can learn how to let go of this pain and suffering, that's really part of the forgiveness process. And now they're receptive and open to it. So I hope that, Marta, were you able to hear that? Or did we lose you? Okay. And so people are, when you start doing the healing work of trauma healing, and you respect and honor their stories, and you help them break the silence and get in touch with the feelings. One of the important things in the forgiveness work is you can't skip any steps. And too often people say, oh, I forgive because my church tells me to forgive or to turn my other cheek and all of that. That's not the real healing that forgiveness brings. The real healing is getting into the trenches of our own emotional burdens and talking about it and working with it and being supported by it so we can eventually begin to see it differently. And it's just like I was saying with the Tutsis and the Hutus, when you begin to see why things happened the way they did, you certainly may not like it, but if you understand it, it gives you more power to work with it, and it empowers you. So it's parallel. And as you know from your work, everybody has their own time. You can't push anybody. Does that help? Okay, she's on mute, but I got her thumbs up.
Yeah. Yeah. Great.
Okay.
Thank you, Florida. What you said, Eileen, about, with trauma, one of the first things that needs to happen is for them to break the silence. Just very brief story. When we were in Kenya and doing work with traumatized young girls, teenage girls, back in 2016, I think it was, Mary was there and some of the other people on this call were there from Feminenza. And one day, some of the girls, we were like in a huddle, and they started to tell their stories, and some of them had never told their story. And I remember one girl, she had said she had scars on her arm from being macheted with a machete knife from sexual physical abuse. And I could feel the power of holding that space to let them tell their story, holding that space with compassion, not saying much. But then at a certain point, I did say to her, you know that you're not your body. You are more than your body, because she said she never wears long sleeve or short sleeve shirts. She always wears long sleeves to cover it because she had shame. And the next day she came with short sleeves and was glowing, simply glowing. So, it's it's so true. If you don't break that silence, imagine all that you carry from not being able to speak about it in a safe place.
Right.
So I really appreciate that.
There is another story, and I know that all the people on this call are pretty hardy, so I will share it. When I was working in Liberia and giving forgiveness trainings, there was this one woman who always carried a paper bag with her. You always knew something was in there. She never spoke. She sat very quietly. And after about the fourth day of her coming home, bringing this paper bag, I finally asked her, would she want to share what was in the bag? Well, it was skeleton bones of her child. Yeah. And I said to her, can we help you? And she kind of said one or two sentences, and I said, we're here for you, to love you and support you. And she said a few more sentences, and you could see, I mean, even probably now, if we looked at each other's faces, we're getting teary-eyed. And then she went on and she finally told the story, which you can all imagine. And we all hugged her, and we were all crying, and we were all telling her how much we loved her. And if she wanted us to do a special ceremony in honor of her daughter, that we would do that for her, and what would it look like? And she just cried, and we asked her to share a little bit more about the things she loved about her, and we all got together and we created a ceremony. And it was a very difficult, emotional day for everyone. I mean, in Liberia, in this group, there were a lot of people who lost children and loved ones, and people shared that with her and told her how they were able to deal with it, and that they're there for her, and that they will be there for her however she wanted them and needed them. And we cried. The next day, she came in for the first time without the bag.
Amazing.
And I was told that from the time her child was killed, and she put those bones and whatever in that bag, she took it everywhere. She slept with it. She took it everywhere. So for her to be able to let it go, it was the first time she could smile.
Wow. Wow. It's huge. It says so much.
It's the power of giving people the story
Mhm.
and giving them the space and the love that they need to mourn with.
Yes. Yes.
We have a
Thank
question
you.
from Agnes.
Yes. Agnes, she was there with me in that work in Kenya, and when the girls spoke, and yeah.
Okay. Thank you so
Amen.
much.
So Agnes, you're now in Kenya?
Yeah, I'm in Kenya. Thank you so much, Eileen Scoyat, Mary Scoyat, in 3. Okay. Now, the political forgiveness, and sometimes I'm a peace builder, forgiveness and reconciliation practitioner in Kenya, and I'm proud of that. And I've worked on, after my training with Feminenza, the first training, I was brought in as a peace builder in my country. And I learned peace building through Feminenza. So my approach on peace building is different from others. It's about forgiveness. And as a peace builder, working with different groups, elders, youth, women, children, I realized there's one group which has always been forgotten. When there's political violence, the security agents are more of perpetrators than victims. But I realized there are more victims than anyone else. The people who work in the commission as in Kenya is IEBC. I happened to meet one of the sons of 2007 post-election violence commissioners under Kivuitu, and families of these commissioners are traumatized when things don't work well. Despite this young man having a good job in the government, he was a depressed person. One time, I was in the church, and when I was in the church, the ushers would come and tell me, Madam Agnes, someone is looking for you. Then I would look around, but I don't know that face. And this guy was told, there's only one person who can assist you, and she's in that church. And the young man was determined to come and meet me. Then I told them, tell him to wait until the service is over. But I think the young man was really impatient. So as I was seated in front, I could see someone coming towards me through the other congregation members. So I looked behind, and the usher told me, he's just here. And I said, no. So I woke up, I took my bag. The service was not yet over. And I held his hand, and now I was taking him out of the church because one, he was very drunk.
Oh.
And when I was holding his hand, he asked me, Ma'am, have I wronged you? Then I said, no, 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 no. You have not wronged me. I just want us to talk. Who are you? I want to know who you are and where are you coming from. As we were walking there out, the pastor saw us and said, Mom and son, can you come over? So we're called back to the altar. And when we went there, I heard this young man say, I've come to collect my mother. And I said, surely, I don't know him, but he's calling me his mother. I've never met him. Then the pastor said, I'll pray for you, then you guys can go. Then he prayed for us and we left. Outside, he had parked his vehicle and said, Mom, I know you don't know me, but someone has said you'll help me. And it is around 7 in the evening. Then he said, you know what? I can't talk to you now. I have to go home. I have to reach home early enough. So I said, no, 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 I'll drop you home. So he dropped me home and he said, can we start talking on phone? Because one, I don't know him and he doesn't even know me. So when we started talking with him on phone, I realized his father was one of the commissioners in the IEBC, which caused post-election violence, 2007, 2008. So I realized that as peace builders, as we are reaching out to, there's always the forgotten percentage of the victims who go silent because of their position and they feel guilty of what has transpired after the election. No one reaches out to them because they are up there. But they are also human beings. So I talked to this young man over the phone and he revealed so much to me. And for me, it was just to listen and talk to him until the time I thought maybe he healed up and he stopped calling me. So my sister, Eileen, what happens when these people whom we give so much responsibility to take care of our election process and things don't go the way they expect, they go on the other side? Who reaches out to them so that they can also receive that political forgiveness?
You know, you bring up a really important point, Agnes. In this work, there are what I call primary victims You
Yeah.
know who they are.
Yes.
But they're what I call secondary victims, people who are affected by what has happened,
Yeah.
not directly, but very pronounced,
Yes.
and then even tertiary.
Yeah.
And you're right, they do get lost.
Mm-hmm.
And it's important to open the door to find them. You know, we think of the wife who lost her husband. What about the other family members and the friends and the kids maybe who would see this person, you know, walk down the road and always said hello. You can see what an impact violence has. And we all are wounded. I think we've got a whole globe of traumatized people
Mm-hmm.
in one way or another. And I think we need to recognize that. And I remember when I was working in Liberia, this whole story now has got me thinking about Liberia, working with the government officials and working with the commissioners from the Truth and Reconciliation Commission. And they were just as wounded as everybody else. But they had to do what their work was. But then you see them act out. And, you know, I remember once talking to the prime minister, and she acted out, and I'm thinking, where did this come from? And I had to remind myself that even though people have a title and a position, that doesn't mean they're not traumatized and that they're going to act out of that place. And we have to learn how to forgive that too. So you brought out the importance of recognizing the scope of what, you know, the work you're doing, and Mary and Eileen and everybody on this call as peace builders have. It's huge.
It's huge because the whole group of that post-election violence, they all died mysteriously. Not because they were killed,
Exactly.
but out
The
of
heart
trauma.
attacks, the suicide, the cancer even.
Mhm.
Well, you know, we know, I mean, there's another side to this. The stress of being in those situations and the loss and not being able to process it and not having the support creates so much stress in the body that it makes us prone to these illnesses and to suicide. Now, the other side, and this is the wonderful work you're doing, Agnes, and everybody on this call, is that we know through research that forgiveness reverses that stress.
Yeah.
Forgiveness has a positive effect on our body. It has a positive effect on our cardiovascular system. It has a positive effect on our immune system. And so we can reverse that. And that's why the work in forgiveness becomes so powerful. So remember that on your hard days, remember the good things you're doing. And then if we can get this network going, we can all share that.
Oh, humble.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Great. Thank you, Agnes, for bringing that forward. Good to see you as always.
Thank you, Eileen. I miss you.
Yeah, we'll be meeting soon.
One of these days, I hope I can get to Kenya and do some of this
Welcome.
work.
Welcome.
And everybody, Feminenza,
Yeah.
part of that.
Okay.
Now,
Thank
so I heard in the introduction that you have done work in the Middle East as well. And I think looking at our situation today, which is very trying to say the least, I was very interested to hear a bit more about your experience in working there and what your thoughts may be about, you know, how that situation could be approached.
Mhm.
I think we are kind of
Oh, Monique, you really touched a spot in me. I mean, last night I was gone for the day and came back and heard the news last night and was so distressed. Although this morning what I'm hearing is that things are calming down, but my thoughts, and I'm actually in the book I'm writing on political forgiveness, I have finally decided to write a chapter on the Israeli-Palestinian situation. It's very complex. And but I think the 25-word or less version, the message is you can be pro-Israeli in terms of honoring the fact that people need to have their safety and security, but not pro-Israeli government in terms of the devastation that's being caused. Just like you can be pro-Palestinian, but that doesn't make you anti-Israeli, anti-Jewish, or anything. And recognize that they have rights too. And they have a right to self-determination. They have a right to safety and security, just like anybody else. And that in what I'm writing about and thinking about is that it's going to be the people. And I don't know the news that you might have been hearing, and I don't know if I heard this or not, or if it's such a wish, but I thought at one point last night at 1 o'clock in the morning, my time, I heard it was the people of Israel who did not want another war. It was the people of Lebanon who did not want another war. And I used to live in Sfat. I don't know if Lillian's on the call. I used to live in Sfat, which is a northern town next to Lebanon. And I've been to Lebanon, and I love Beirut. And when I first turned on the TV, it said, you know, a northern Israeli city. I said to my husband, where is that? And they didn't say, and I think it was Haifa. I'm sure it's now Haifa. You know, I have such feelings for this land on all sides. And this is why I thought even more strongly how I want to go back there. I used to work there. I used to work with Palestinian women and Israeli women. And at that time, it was Healing Memories Workshop, which was really a forgiveness workshop. But I called it something else. And when I did work in Lebanon, the title, I can't remember, but it was something about history. The word history was in it. So, you know, again, it wasn't about forgiveness, but it was clearly forgiveness. And I am more convinced than ever that it will be the people coming together, and there are groups that are already doing this, coming together in forgiveness and reconciliation. And the more we can broaden that coalition and that healing what has happened on all sides, so people can come together because people are feeling the same pain, the same suffering, and help people really understand so this can never happen again. That's, I think, going to be what's going to inoculate that region for more war. I don't know if that answers your question, but I feel so strongly as people can learn how to heal themselves and heal their wounds and recognize these are the wounds that everyone is feeling, and that together people can stop it and empower people. I think that's what's going to need to happen. I don't know, you know, well, does that answer you? I mean, I know you've been thinking about this.
Yeah. I mean, of course, because you know, we have Feminenza members there. We know many people there. And I think it's very concerning and distressing too. But yeah, we know, for example, we know a few organizations that are exactly working towards the purpose that you say, like the Prince who are very consciously building the infrastructure, you know, for that situation. And I know for a fact that so many people want peace. I mean, you know, both Israelis and Palestinians. No one is, you know, wanting war, obviously.
Right. And this is where, you know, when I was sharing a little bit about what is political forgiveness, and I mentioned it's an interactive process. It's really also a framework of bringing people together so they can heal their own wounds and their grievances. And, you know, I know it was Connie that spoke about humility. When you get an Israeli and a Palestinian together who want to create peace, and they hear each other's story, and they understand where each other's come from, their psychological landscape, there's humility there. They recognize it's happening to both of us. We're just in different camps. It's the same kind of stuff. And when they can begin to heal that and really learn processes of how to really hear one another and value one another and go through that process of the logics of truth. You know, where did we grow up? How did our beliefs form? We can all understand that. And what are the obstacles that get in our way because of those beliefs? And how can we overcome those beliefs together and then create a healing scenario? That's what political forgiveness is all about.
Yeah.
And that's where the power is. And then it begins to empower people.
Yeah, I think once you have felt that it's possible, and I've seen that happen, and I've seen it in my own life and with others.
Right.
That's
And
very significant, because
and
then
can
you
you, right. And can you imagine? I'm really thinking about this network. This just came up as we were talking. Someone on the Israeli-Palestinian side just feeling distraught and wanting this to work, and then you hop on the network and say, let me just share something with you. I've felt this way, and this is what I've seen, and this is what I've experienced, and this is what we can help you with. Building that morale and letting people know they're not alone, and that there are people out there who care about them and care about their healing and coming together. People power. Another thing that I was very involved with was I was the director of training and program development for the Institute for Multi-Track Diplomacy. And I taught a lot about multi-track diplomacy. That's really involving all sectors of society in learning how to work with one another using tools of peace building. And there's nothing more powerful than getting people together to help one another out. We all know it. We can all do it, and we can have this forgiveness hotline network. And if Penny's on the call, Penny, forgive me. I'm creating more work. But can you see the power in it? Oh, and there's Lillian, who I've been thinking about all night long, sending, Lillian and everybody in this group, especially in that part of the world, my prayers. I sat in a very long meditation last night, just holding everyone in my thoughts and prayers. So I hope that answers your question, Monique.
Yeah, thank you. That's very helpful.
Yeah.
Thank you very much for sharing that. Yeah.
Thank you, Monique. And I think also within what you're saying, Eileen, is the power of understanding the historical narrative of the other, which, as we know, the parent circle are very strong about. But it makes such a huge difference. It's like with a friend, when you dare to confront or have that difficult conversation about something that happened that was difficult, and you hear their story and where they came from or why they did it, it makes all the difference.
It makes sense.
Yeah.
And as I said, if we were living in those circumstances, we'd probably be acting the same way.
Exactly.
Very similar.
Yeah. So
that's where the healing comes in.
Yes. Thank you. I'm going to bring in Dorota, and we might as well just bring Lillian onto the screen now, because that just seems like a good idea.
Hi,
Eileen and Eileen.
Hi, Dorota. We can bring Lillian on here too. That would be great.
There you go.
Hi, Lillian.
Hi, everyone.
What I wanted to ask was around more to do with the process of individual or forgiveness on an individual level. From your book, and you already touched on that, Eileen, but in thinking about the book you've written about finding forgiveness, you describe steps to take to find forgiveness, or to be able to forgive. And that's a conversation I find myself often having, and also a question that have come up quite often in our A Resilient Life calls. That the question about, I see the need for forgiveness. I want to forgive, but I don't know where to start. Where do I start? What can I, when it comes to what could be a first step, or what could I do? So I would be really grateful to hear your approach to that question. Where do you start a process of forgiveness?
By telling your story. By telling your story to people that you trust, one or two other people, and really saying what it is you're so angry about, and what is it that you really want to forgive. I hear funny things afterwards, when people tell their stories and I say, what are you so angry about? Then they can tell me, and I would say, what do you feel that you need to let go of, that you want to forgive? Sometimes telling the story, they said, I don't know why I'm even now angry anymore.
Right.
Those things even happen. But for those that are really, feeling really angry about it, I start working with the anger. And you heard me say a little while ago, anger serves a purpose. It's like a red flag saying something either outside of us needs to change or something inside of us needs to heal. And so we start working with anger. And, I always say, if you can't let go of anger, then ask the question, what am I accusing that other person of? That person may be abusive to you, and you would say, I would never do those things. But you might be abusive in another way, even to yourself, and not realize it. And sometimes just asking the question without even knowing the answer helps. Because you can say, well, something, I'm sure something like that's happened, and I've got to forgive myself for doing that. And there you go. You're beginning to release something inside of yourself. Because remember, forgiveness is about your own inner healing. And when that healing is accomplished, there's a peace that you feel. Because that's what forgiveness brings. And for all of you that are working so diligently in this, I see different levels of forgiveness. I always tell people right off the bat, if for nothing else, to forgive someone is very pragmatic. You're letting go your emotional burden. And so for a lot of people who say, I don't want to forgive, yada, yada, yada. Well, do you want to let go of that anger? Or do you want to become a bitter person? I don't want to become a bitter person. All right, so let's just work on letting go of your anger. That's all you need to do. Very pragmatic. Let go of that grievance, that anger. Learn how to change the channel. I do a lot with changing the channels, of going into the beauty channel or going into the love channel. I've even got a pet channel because I'm crazy about my animals. It just brings up all of those feelings. That's why when Eileen, you went to feed your cat, man, I was right there with you. You feel the joy. Feel the joy. Get into that space. That's pragmatic. For all of you who've been really working with it, it gets deeper and deeper and deeper, where you begin to feel the connection of, yes, I'm not so different than that other person, given those circumstances. And you begin to feel the human connection and that interconnectionness. And then you get a little bit deeper to recognize, yeah, that's all our ego stuff going on, and we're all egos. But deeper in that person is their true spiritual essence. And I can relate to that too. And there's a spiritual shift that takes place that can be really profound. And in my book, when I write about the story of Iran War, the French woman who lived in France growing up as a child in World War I and was part of the resistance in World War II and went through a lot of suffering. At the end of the war, she was invited to go to Coast, Switzerland. And she said yes, not realizing that there were going to be 160 Germans present. There she was with them. And every time a German would speak, the French would walk out. She walked out, and the Lutheran minister, Frank Buchman, posed a question. How do you see a united Europe without Germany? And she went to her room for 2.5 days and was very justified in holding on to her anger. And then she realized that it was holding on to that anger in her heart, which was the reason why wars began in the first place.
Wow. Yep.
And so she went out and she went to lunch, and at the conference, it was like, community, family style. She sat down, and of course, a German woman sat next to her. And there was dead silence. And finally, she started to talk to that woman, and she told this woman all the reasons why she hated Germans. Can you imagine sitting there and all of a sudden this woman goes on the rampage of why she hated her and all the Germans and what went on. And then she finally said to the German woman, I'm telling you all of this because I want to be freed of my anger. She told her story. And then the German woman said, it's my turn. And she began to tell her story. And her story included the fact that her husband was one of the men responsible for the plot to kill Hitler. She said the plot failed, he was arrested, and he was hung. And then they came for me. And they took my children away and put them in orphanages under assumed names. I've since then got them back. I know we didn't resist early enough. We didn't resist strong enough. We didn't resist in a way that would help the world. And for that, I want to say, I'm sorry. When Iran went to speak to the conference, she shared all the stuff that had happened. And at the end, a German woman got up and walked on the stage. And she wanted to shake Iran's hand. She thanked her for what she heard. Iran couldn't do it, and she prayed to herself. And all of a sudden, she felt this wellspring. And this miracle happened, and she was able to extend her hand. The miracle was that something inside of her changed, where she could deeply forgive the German people. And she spent the rest of her life committed to helping build especially the morale of the German women and speaking to all their different governments about the importance and power of forgiveness. And she did that to the last day she lived. That is an inner transformation that took place within her where she had no need of outer instruction. That's a real spiritual transformation. And we can all experience it, but it takes that work. But that's the power of forgiveness. And it was actually when I first heard that story, probably in 1985, along with other things going on in my life, that made me feel that I wanted to be committed to this work. Because if she can do it, all of us can do it.
Yeah. Yeah.
I can see in your response the importance of embracing the whole of oneself, in not trying to jump too fast to I need to forgive, but to not suppress what's there, but to look at put everything on the table, what's actually there, and then deal with it.
That's right. You can't skip any steps. And, Iran spent 2.5 days going through, and, it's in the book, if you have it, the story. So I won't go into all of it. But she went into all the reasons why she hated the Germans. And she had to, in order for her to finally get to the place. It's like the revenge story. Like I said, just go into your revenge story and then ask yourself, does this get you what you want? She went through all the reasons she was angry and hatred and how she was going to hold on to that. And she asked the question, will this really get you what you want? The answer was clearly no. And only then could she begin to entertain the thought of something else. That's the little willingness that opens the door to forgiveness.
Wonderful. Wonderful.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Dorta, for your question. And just to say, Eileen, those 3 words, 4 words, the power of forgiveness, because, we hear that a lot, But it is powerful. I mean, what can release someone from deep anger, hurt, resentment for years and actually get it released? It's incredible. It's really, and we know so many stories about that, you know. There's so many out there, and from our own lives, it's just, it is very powerful. It's a very powerful story. Thank you. So let's bring in Lillian. Dorothea, you're welcome to stay. It's just nice to have your company here as well.
And Lillian, I'm so glad to see you. Last night, when I first saw what was going on in Israel, you were the first person I thought about. And then my husband said to me, is anyone on the call tomorrow going to be from Israel? And I said, Lillian, and I hope I get to see her. At least I'm seeing you smile.
Well, thank you. Thank you very, very, very much. Yes. I must have felt you because you were very much on my mind and I couldn't wait for the call this afternoon. So it's really great. So yeah, we're all safe and well and okay. And hopefully it will remain kind of quiet, at least for a while. The conversation has moved on a bit from where I wanted to come in, but there's something in forgiveness and in the desire for forgiveness that brings up a lot of hope. And for me, with forgiveness, I always feel like I need to always go back to carrying the hope that things can change and that something can change. It can change in I don't know. It can change in the air. It can change in people. It can change through education. It can change through something. And for me, to hold on to that belief seems to be the key to being able to let go of everything else that wants to creep in. And a lot always wants to creep in. You know, if I talk about forgiveness with some of my friends or colleagues or whatever, not from Feminenza, other colleagues, usually it's met with a lot of derision and how dare you and how can you and it's impossible. And I always go back and people say hope is an illusion, and there is no way that I will give room for that in me, because without hope, I think everything will be so bleak and impossible. But knowing that we are human, and as you mentioned in the beginning of the call, and with the humility of knowing that we are human, and in the core basis of that, we are human, and we're more same than we are different. And that's where forgiveness always takes me, to that place of knowing and remembering and holding on to that. And whether a perpetrator might be able to kind of have some kind of an epiphany and a switch from someplace, or I'm calling it a divine intervention, because often I think, and I hope that there might be a divine intervention through each human being. There has to be some divine intervention. So you call it spiritual change, and I definitely believe that it's possible. It's absolutely possible. Anyway, that's kind of what I wanted to bring in. So,
well, and that's also a very important point. And you got a lot going on in your country, and I guess you probably know a little bit about what's going on here in the United States.
sure.
And I've been following the Democratic convention. I actually watched both because I'm always interested to hearing what everybody's got to say. There is such a kind of leaning toward authoritarianism these days, and it's full blown in this country. And what do authoritarian leaders want to do? Divide, conquer, make us, them, make you feel despair, which is the opposite of hope. And if you feel enough despair, it stresses out the brain. And I won't go into the neuropsychology, but you all know I'm a psychologist, so I'm thinking about these things. There's a lot of stress that happens within our brains, and after a while, we can't handle it. It's easier to kind of go with that authoritarian type thinking because we can't stand it anymore. Unless we do something else that brings us back together. Kamala Harris talked about it. Lillian just spoke about it. It's hope.
Mhm.
And if we recognize the power of hope, it begins to shift our energy to coming back together. And look at what all your words were about. We're coming back together, bringing people together, creating that really unity through hope. So when people say, well, hope is an illusion, no. Hope generates certain kinds of actions that bring us back together. And that's what the hope is about. So it's very powerful. And when you think about our work in forgiveness, when we walk into communities and we help people and we give them, tools and ways of being that help let go of their emotional burden, we're giving them hope for a better future. And that's what inspires them. Telling the story about Iran Law just now probably triggered some hope in people. Yeah, if she can do it, we can do it. That's empowering. So hope is really important. And I'm really glad you brought that up. Because if we lose it, we lose our power to unite. And we fall more prey to
Mhm.
those negative forces of authoritarianism.
Yeah.
And it's so good to see you, Lillian. I'm really
Yeah, great to see you as well.
Thank you, Lily. Yes, great. Also, in our 7 pillars, pillar 6 is hope. And I love one of the phrases we have about it, that hope is knowing what should be can be. And we know, and more people know what's the right thing to do. They know what's the right thing. I see Mary Noble has her hand up. So thank you, Lillian and Dorta.
Thank you both.
Yeah, no, I'm incredibly moved by this, last run and the story that you told, Eileen, and what's come with it, and the feeling that's kind of turned up. And it's kind of like goosebump time, and something I was thinking about last night was, what are, people have core, like really important core values. Last year, 2 years ago, we had a conversation with Gregory Boyle, who is a Jesuit priest who does amazing work with people in LA. He's run a foundation for years helping ex-gang members. And we had a conversation with him, and we were asking him about what were his core values. And he described it as the things that are not negotiable in him. And I was reflecting on that last night, thinking, I know that for years, forgiveness for me is like, it's not negotiable. I will reach for forgiveness, come what may. And I will not allow not having forgiveness in myself. So when there are situations that sometimes come up that might be really tough or difficult, I kind of meet that in myself and go, okay, I've made that decision. You're going to work through this. Whatever it takes, you're going to work through this. You're going to let go. So I just wondered, for you, Eileen, what would be, in a way, those kind of places you come back to in yourself, in a sense, that are not non-negotiable, that enables you to pick yourself up, keep going in the extraordinary way that you do. If there's anything you could say about that, it would be wonderful to hear.
Well, it's interesting because I was having this kind of conversation about what's going on politically in our country, and people were saying, well, why would you vote for so and so? And I would say, and the things that are non-negotiable for me: integrity, authenticity, moral courage, honesty. These are all non-negotiable.
Right.
And when you follow that, that certainly does take you down the path of forgiveness too.
Right.
So those are my non-negotiables.
Right.
And
Wonderful.
that's what I also look for in leaders, because people say why they vote for one. if they don't have it,
Yeah.
they're not going to be my leader either.
Yeah. Yeah. Right. Great. Well, that answers it. That's amazing. Thank you.
So can I
yeah.
push on that button
Please.
more? So if because I'm sure it happens to you as well, we're human, right? So let's say someone really insults you to the core, right? So how does that play out in you with those, like what do you do in that moment? And give us a little sense of the trace of your journey to get to the forgiveness.
Well, I first think, do I need to set up a boundary to protect myself? That's actually what I think.
Okay.
No?
Yeah.
Because if somebody's insulting me, and that's verbal abuse.
Mm-hmm.
And I think this is a really important question, because I don't jump to forgiving them right away.
Right.
You see, it's like, okay, what's going on here? What do I need to do? And this goes on to, all right, I'm getting angry. What's my anger telling me? Is there something that needs to change outside of me or something inside of me? So right now, I'm not going to deal with the verbal abuse. That's what goes on.
Mm-hmm.
Now, once I remove myself from the situation, I could, say, well, whatever that inner dialogue is, to try to understand where they're coming from. And that's how, to get a different understanding. But it doesn't mean that I have to, as you all know, reconcile with this person or do anything more.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's really important to also know that you got to take care of yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if they insult me and they're really angry, and I come to the realization that something has really happened to them, that's really upsetting them, and they're taking it out on me, which happens, and that's not what they usually mean to do.
Mm-hmm.
Then we can talk about it, and I certainly can forgive them and continue our relationship. So here again, it's not one size fits all, but it is being true to yourself, to ask yourself, okay, what's going on? And the first thing sometimes is, do I need to protect myself? Do I need to set a healthy boundary? Because the other side of it is, if you attack me, it's like like a little kid having a scissor. And I want to take that scissor away so you don't hurt yourself anymore or me. And by setting that boundary, by saying stop, you stop hurting yourself too, because there's a part of you that knows you've also attacked me. And when that happens, even if we're not aware of it, we're feeling some guilt. And guilt justifies punishment. And so you're getting this attack, defend, and this guilt cycle going on. And the most loving thing we can do is to help people not build up any more guilt, to let that go. People think it's love that makes the world go round. If you want to get someone to do something, it's guilt.
Yeah.
And what usually makes us feel so bad is guilt.
Yes.
So if I can stop you from piling on any more guilt, and which means not hurting me, that's a very loving thing I'm doing for you.
Yes. Wonderful. Wonderful. Yes, I think that guilt is a very corrosive thing for sure.
It's very hard for us to get in touch with. Nobody wants to feel that pit in their stomach.
Yeah. And also within what you're saying, Eileen, with a boundary. So obviously if, say, a woman's being abused, she doesn't first go to forgiveness. She first gets herself in a safe place and then later can maybe deal with that. But yeah, thank you very much. If it's okay, I'd like to ask you about something very practical from something you've written. And then in the meantime, if anyone wants to gather your question or your responses, please do. So on your website, it shows a little bit about the basic training program for conflict resolution. And you talk about the 3 trainings. And the first one is about a basic understanding of the causes of conflict. So can you tell us what you think some of those causes of conflict are on an individual level as well as on a collective level?
Okay. A lot of times we are in conflict for something very simple.
Mhm.
We don't have enough information, or we think we have information and we need more information. And that could be the understanding of one another, why people do what they do, to get an understanding. And as I said, if you understand someone, you can't fight with them. We might have different needs, and those needs need to be expressed. And a lot of times we have conflict over needs, wants, desires.
Mhm.
We have conflicts over differing perceptions. So here again, we need to get more information. What are those perceptions? Why did they form the way they did? So we can learn about one another. And we talked about stereotypes in the beginning of the conversation, of how we form these different stereotypes, and a lot of them is unconscious, but then we'll act a certain way, we'll act it out. So we have to become more aware of these perceptions and get more information, so these stereotypes can be dispelled. Or if they're true stereotypes, we need to know that too. So when you really boil it down, it's a lot about information about what we have, we need more of, or we don't have, according to needs, perceptions. There's also conflicts over values, and those are harder to negotiate and work with. But it's important to understand where they've come from.
Mhm.
And here you don't necessarily like them or agree with them, but at least you understand. So these are some of the root causes of what causes conflict. And when you understand, and we talked a little bit about the role of history here. We are all products of our history.
Mhm.
And so again, we need to understand more information.
Yes, we do.
So I hope that answers that piece for you.
That's great.
I'm back again.
You're
Now
back
this
again. So
this
glad for that. You keep coming
this
back. It's so good.
Our peacemaker.
this this is present. After working on post-election violence, election security, coordinating election security programs from 2011 after the post-election violence, and there was always, we would give a window and say, after elections, we give ourselves like 6 months just to monitor the behavior of the political class, the community, the losers and the winners. The trend has changed in our country. 2 years after the elections, we have violence. People have lost lives. The young people have gone in rampage. Generation Z. And it's like we are within the limbo. And the political class don't want to let go. And the young people say, we are tired. Now, as a peace builder, how are we going to, do we owe apology to our children because we have messed up the country? Are the elders ready for political forgiveness? Now I'm always asking myself questions and I have no answers. Now I have my fellow peace builder. Help me.
I always believe in start doing your work where the doors open. I mean, I can make it like the akin to our MAGA Republicans here. They're not going to want to hear a word I say. They're not there. But you do have people in the Republican Party, and actually we've been beginning to see that, who are tired. And so you give them the skills. You don't have to apologize for something you didn't do. I can't apologize for what the MAGAs are doing, but I can help you have skills to learn how to let go of your pain and suffering and how to come together and build a stronger coalition. So you begin to build the foundation of peace builders, just like I keep talking about wanting to build a foundation based on political forgiveness. And if you can do that, that's huge. So start where you can have the effect.
Awesome. I can only start with the young people because already the opposition and the government have come together. Now it is Generation Z against the political class.
Yeah, well, I can't say enough good things about younger people. We need them
Yeah.
because they're the ones who are going to build tomorrow.
Mhm.
So give them the right skills today and give them help them have a healthy mindset that's based on moral courage today, and you'll have stronger leaders tomorrow.
Yeah, my mentor Monique and I are trying to do something.
Oh, I'm
And
sure it's
let's
gonna be
see, we are piloting and see if it will work.
good. I'm sure it will.
Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you, Agnes.
Welcome.
By the way, are you thinking, Eileen, with going where the doors are open? Totally agree. With your plans for America, are you thinking at all to go to Congress? Do you work directly with the politicians ever in different places? Or do you work more with the, go ahead.
My dream
Mm-hmm.
doing some of this work with incoming freshmen to all the different state congresses to give them the skills to know how to let go of their grievances and their petty angers and give them the skills to really hear one another and the opportunity to tell their class where they're coming from and why, so people can understand one another. That's my dream. So if anybody knows anybody out there who's really rich can really help me do this, this would be great. And
Wonderful. Yes.
I don't want to limit it to anybody.
Yeah.
So I really want to get this training program off the ground to anyone who wants to really learn these skills and to be able to use them in their own life and in their own communities.
Mm.
So
Wonderful.
this is what I'm working on. And actually, what I'm thinking about doing, I don't know if I've mentioned this to you, but I may have mentioned it to Mary. I'm thinking of actually starting a podcast because if there's one way a lot of people are hearing information, it's through podcasts.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
You know, get out this information in however I can, in whatever way I can. And hopefully that'll draw people interested in taking the training program in political forgiveness. And my friend Connie, who spoke earlier, I pulled her in on this of how are we going to get this word out? And thanks to Connie, she's also put the bug in my ear about podcasting. So it's really to get this training program off the ground, and I want to test it and give people the skills so they can really go into their communities and use these skills to help bring people together.
Wonderful, wonderful. I'm sure you probably saw Oprah Winfrey was in the convention speaking the other night, and one thing she brought that I loved was it's time that we're able to have civilized debates. Right? And to be civilized, you need some humanity, you need some humility, you need some respect.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, wonderful. So,
Hi everyone.
Hi, Mary.
Hi. I just want to really appreciate and I want to say thank you. Thank you for our guest speaker for today. I'm so grateful, and this is a process that has made us to reflect back and see the far we've walked and get to remind ourselves some areas that maybe we have left out, because our guest speaker has spoken and she has given us some steps and areas that we need to focus on it. And especially the power of forgiveness, the power of healing, and more so. So for me, as a peace builder also, and working in Kenya, the western part of Kenya, I'm so grateful. This is an area that I need to learn more, because I'm coming from an area that conflict is so high. The cattle rustling, the tribal clashes, the clanism, the land issues are very rampant in this region, and also the political conflict. And talking about the political forgiveness. I think this is an area that I need to learn more from this area. And I must say I'm so grateful because this is an area that I've been looking into for quite some time. Understanding that these are the people that have been left behind, that we assume that they are very strong, they are doing the right thing. And I've come to realize that they are so traumatized. Most of them are very traumatized that they need to be assisted so that they can come out of this. At some point, you can see the way they are acting. They are acting out. It's like they have some revenge in them. So this is something that we should build on this. We should build on this because a lot of conflict has been an influence of any electioneering period, whereby whenever we go for our election, there must be a conflict. So that shows that this influence comes because somebody somewhere is trying to incite and build on a revenge. Maybe because they've lost the position, maybe because of the wealth that they've used a lot of wealth and nobody's paying them back. So yeah, I think this is something that I'm so grateful about it. The power, the political forgiveness. It's an area that we need to build on this. And again, having worked for quite some time, we met with Feminenza, Mary and the team when I was working for peace in the North Rift. And I've gotten a lot of skills from them. They are my mentors and they have really helped me. What I'm doing right now, we have the Kenya National Action Plan, where we are talking about women, peace, and security. And we have the 2250 for the youth. So we are trying to impact the knowledge to these young people, whereby we need to journey with them. We need to bring on board the community at large, the elders, the youth, and even the women on board, because we are talking about women, peace, and security. And we are trying to localize the Kenya National Action Plan. So I've been asking my questions that I have worked for almost 2 decades, like 20 years ago, 25 years ago, but the same thing is still coming back. And listening to you is a process. Listening to what you've told us, we need to work and work as a team. We need that unity. And I'm so grateful. And I must say, thank you so much. Thank you, Feminenza. You've really worked with us. You've given us a lot of skills. And today we have Eileen, who has really spoken and she has taught us. So I'm so grateful being a peace builder. And I just want to tell Mary and the team that I've trained to be a mediator. I'm accredited. I've gotten accreditation to be a mediator. So I'll be trying to do the peace building as well as the mediation. And where it's very good that when I went through this, it is the same as what Eileen have talked about, that there is no, it's a win-win situation where we don't want to see that so-and-so is a loser, so-and-so is a succeeded. No, we want to bring the community together and talk about this. So I just wanted to comment and say thank you so much. I didn't have questions because I've listened to all the questions that I was to ask. I've been asked and they have been answered. So thank you so much. And thank you. Thank you.
Well, you're more than welcome, Mary. And it's just so wonderful that you are such a peace builder because you bring to your work the mindset of forgiveness. Even when you're doing the mediation work, you have that wonderful mindset. And that's what's needed more than anything else. And, you know, one of the ways that we can help things to not be repeated, when you think about all the conflicts in the world and you take a look at all the negotiations that happen and you take a look at all the peace accords that have happened and all of that, and most of them fail. And the reason for that is that we don't deal with the undertow of the emotional responses. We don't deal with the underlying anger. We don't deal with the underlying fear. We don't deal with mourning the loss. And until we do that, things are not going to go very far. And that's where the work of political forgiveness is just so important. So thank you for what you're doing because that's huge.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you so much. Yeah,
Thank
being
you,
a
Mary.
and a forgiveness person, and I just want to say the forgiveness process, the trainings, the skills I got from the Feminenza, and I'm so happy because it's quite some time since we started this journey together. So thank you because I've seen people forgiving one another, I've seen people reconcile, and yeah, it has been a journey. Thank you.
Thank you, Mary, very much. I love to see that you're still out there enduring, because I know it's not always easy.
I would love to go wherever I'm needed. So I would love to come to you. And this is such interesting work, and sometimes you have to change the language a little bit. If I start working with politicians here, it's going to be called Bridging the Divide, being heard, seen, and valued. So, sometimes, and probably Mary has had to deal with this too, that you've got to change the language to get your foot in the door. But that's okay. We're kind of sneaky. Whatever works, meet them. In all honesty, you meet them where they're at. You meet them where they can be, where they can hear you, and then you move them along. And if that means changing the language a bit so they feel comfortable, so you can open the door, that's part of the work.
So I want us to bring Mary back to the screen to help sync by. And before, oh, do you want to say something, Mary?
No, just to really thank Eileen so much for this time. So I think there's been so many threads in this for everybody. So just really, it's been incredible. Thank you.
Yes, it has been wonderful. I can't wait to listen to the recording again because it's been full. There's been a lot in there. Thank you so much. And definitely we'll be speaking and seeing each other hopefully one day somewhere. So I wanted, yes, we have to make that happen. So I wanted to ask if you would like to say something about your newsletter, because we thought also to put a link in the chat to it if people want to sign up for your newsletter.
Yes, thank you for that, Eileen, because the newsletter comes out every month. It is on political forgiveness. So it talks about different aspects of political forgiveness. And if you go on my website, you can sign up for it. And so the way it's kind of designed is that there's a little message that I have, and then a blog. And all those blogs that have been on the past newsletters are also on my website. So even though you might have missed all these newsletters past few years, you can get to read all the blogs. And then underneath that, there is something called From My Desk, where I give some resources that kind of pertain to the blog. So not only do you get a blog that's talking about a specific aspect of political forgiveness, you're getting some resources that you can click on to learn more about it. And then an area called Deeper Moments to get you to kind of think and reflect about what was just said and why this was important. So you get a deeper understanding of political forgiveness. And I really hope that you all sign up for it. This is one way of getting information out to all of you who I cannot see at all or not very often, to keep the word going, and to please feel free to share the links with your networks, because this is another way of beginning to build the platform of political forgiveness around the world. So if you sign up and you like it and you've got your own network, please share that with your networks. This is how we begin to also create that, that vision I have of all the lights around the world with our network. So I welcome all of you to sign up on the website. And if you have any comments or questions or thoughts that you'd like to share, feel free to contact me with that, because this is how we all learn and grow. And I want to give you what it is that you want and need. So thank you for that, Eileen.
Yes. Thank you again, Eileen, for all your great work, really. Very much appreciated what you're doing in the world.
Well, we're all in it together.
We are.
We got all these beautiful tapestry that we're sewing together.
Yes. Yes.
So I want to thank you all too for your work as well.